throw me up here because I did something like that because we all need emotional laborers. Right, Shannon? She said we need to have a strong back. So hi everyone, I'm Aparna and I'm the other founding partner of the Amarna Group. You should know that it's not just the two of us. We have a stellar team of people of multiple identities across the U.S. who are supporting us with this work and teaching us every day. So that's me. I did want to talk a little bit about how I came into this work. It's, I love hearing stories and I'm trying to get better at telling my own stories. Similar to Ava, I'm a pretty linear thinker and want to get straight to sort of the meat of lessons and tangible take-homes, but I do think stories are important. So how I came into working in the conservation and environmental space, I would say started with me as a kid in the 80s, daughter of immigrants from India, who decided that the way we become more American was to go to a national park every year. And my family, like many families from India, we lived in a pretty big extended family household. And would be groups of like 30 plus people that all lived within a mile of each other in the San Francisco Bay Area, and we would go rent a camper, and we'd have these station wagons, and all the kids would sleep in the back of the station wagon, and we'd stop at like McDonald's and Taco Bell's along the way, and we'd go to whatever national park had multiple group campsites available for us, which, as you might imagine, were not very many at the time. And that was a transformative experience for me. And I want to revisit that for a second because it's a little more complicated. And then I had a pretty traditional career path. Like Chandra said, my family, you don't go work in the conservation space, you become a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. And so I was an engineer and a lawyer, so I got two of those three. And then I had my existential crisis about 10 years into practicing law and decided, this is not my beautiful house. This is not, what am I doing? And I left. And I started working for the National Outdoor Leadership School, moved to Wyoming. There's a big story there too. But, so then I started working in earnest in the outdoor and environmental space. How I came into doing equity and inclusion work is a little bit of a different story. So I'm sitting here at an outdoor education organization as like the one or two brown women in the building. And of course, I get enlisted to do diversity and inclusion work, because that's what happens. It was incredibly tokenizing, but I took it upon myself to do the work, not just well, but to do it, to like be an expert. I was gonna be the best at it, I was gonna really enjoy it, and I did. I really did fall in love with the work, notwithstanding the fact that I was tokenized in doing it in the first place. I stayed in this work because sometimes I think about a couple of things. I think about that story of, the 5 or 6 year old, or how old I was when I first went to a national park, and how transformative it was to me to be sitting here in these spaces that I thought were so sublime and so pristine and so untouched. Because I did not have people like Brenna there to tell me the full story. And this idea of decolonizing Walt Brown is something that's been top of mind for me lately, because I also co-direct the summit called People of the Global Majority in the Outdoors, Nature, and the Environment. It's happening in 2 weeks in Oakland. And it's a summit for Black and Indigenous and people of color. And I'm trying to do that more and more because a lot of times people of color get lumped into this big, I don't know if lumped is a word, it's a word now. One big monolith, right? And we are not. And so in this particular summit last year, there was all this rhetoric around reclaiming our space in public lands as people of color. There were videos about it's our legacy, it's our birthright. And that bothered me. And it wasn't until an indigenous leader, Val Lopez of the Yanomami people, stood up and said, "You're erasing us. in this process, that the rest of the room realized, oh, holy crap, what are we doing here? We're not supporting each other. We're continuing to be complicit in colonialism as people of color who are not indigenous. And so, to me, that's one of the reasons that I stay in this work, is to try to figure out ways to decolonize what ground. And another reason I stay in this work is that, I wear a mask every day, or I don't know if I wear a mask, I wore a mask every day in every career I was in, where I was one of few people with my identities, whether I was an engineer, or whether I was a lawyer, whether I was in conservation or higher education, I would wear a mask, and as a woman of a certain age now, I don't know what the mask is or what it means anymore. And so I feel like an immense sense of responsibility to folks who are entering this field and folks who are younger than me, because I don't think anyone should have to wear that mask. And I don't think anyone should have to look in a mirror at the age of 40-something like me and say, like, what's the real Aparna? I've assimilated for so long. So that's another reason I stay in this work. Now, to the nitty-gritty, enough about me. When I started this work, it was diversity work, and then it was diversity and inclusion work, and then diversity, equity, and inclusion work, and then if you're the National Parks Conservation Association, it's now JEDI, or Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. If you're the Sierra Club, you get rid of diversity and inclusion and call it equity and justice work. That's the work we're talking about, and as Ava said, one of the biggest, I'm not going to say challenges, because I think every challenge is also an opportunity, is for all of you in the room to tease out what all those words mean and be really precise. Because we use the word diverse for a lot of things. We use it as code to describe people of color. How many people here have been described as diverse? Right? It's easy to say. And we don't use a lot of precision. And we say this often, ambiguity does a disservice to all of us in this field. So get to that foundational information and be precise. Other things we've seen, other trends, and again, I don't want to just say that these are challenges, but also opportunities. I have like a list of 9 here. Just going to rattle them off. This is now me switching from storytelling mode to consultant, who's going to give you tangible take-homes mode. I think that in our experience, and we work with about 60 different organizations and agencies and institutions that are in this outdoor and environmental spaces, one of the biggest pitfalls is this focus on diversity and not on inclusion and equity and justice. And I think part of that is because equity and justice compel us to examine history, to own the good, the bad, and the ugly, to maybe even change the fundamental nature of what you might do as a conservation organization, and not just change how you talk about what you do, actually change what you do and change how you do it. So all that work is so hard that I think people just want to focus on diversity and on numbers and on representation and on metrics. And so that's the one thing I would say is that everything's measurable. You can measure inclusion, you don't just need to measure diversity. And Ava and I usually say if you lead with equity and if you lead with inclusion, then the diversity follows. So diversity is the outcome, it's not the work. The other thing we've seen is, and it's sort of along the same lines, is this emphasis on the external work. And I think we see a lot of that, and when people talk about what are you doing in terms of equity and justice, everyone will talk about, people will talk about partnerships, people will talk about campaigns, people will talk about hiring, people will talk about internship programs. And the reality is that the work isn't just external, it's internal, it's about culture change. It's about reimagining your mission and your vision. It's about creating even workplaces where anyone and everyone who wants to maybe work in your organization can feel valued. And so when Ava mentioned the work we do is helping organizations build holistic plans, it's usually, hey, guess what? This isn't just about hiring and outreach and partnerships. It's also about your built environment. Is it welcoming? It's also about fundraising. Are you perpetuating a savioristic narrative while you're fundraising? Let's talk about that. It's about a lot of things. And the other thing, and this is number 4 or 5, I don't know who's keeping track in my list. And Jennifer mentioned this idea of transformational, and I think it's, to the extent organizations are engaging in equity work, a lot of times I'm noticing it's very transactional and not trust-based, not transformational. So when I think of transactional, what I think about is when organizations partner with, let's say, a community, grassroots community group, and let's say you're a public lands organization, you partner with that community group, or even with a tribe, but ultimately it's for your own ends, to make sure that you keep some specific protected designation, let's say. Another example of transactional partnership would be, you need to get more kids of color into the outdoors, so let's just partner with Latino Outdoors and Natives Outdoors and Outdoor Afro, and then use all those numbers of people who visit to count it towards diversity and visitation. And so that's transactional. And at times that can also really make organizations feel used. And so a lot of times we talk about trust-based partnerships, playing the long game, thinking about how everyone benefits, and maybe even taking a step back and letting the community organization or the community itself lead the vision. And I think along those same lines of transactional versus transformational is also this idea of paternalism, which comes from a colonial mindset. But to the extent that organizations sometimes are working with grassroots groups or communities of color, even with tribes, it's always this idea of like we're helping them, we're protecting them, we're serving them. And that narrative, if that continues to be perpetuated, so do the power systems, right? And so this idea of paternalism is something that we continue to see. A couple of other things, and you don't know all our identities, but if you just like look at this panel for a second, and we're all engaged in equity and inclusion work, you can kind of see who are the people doing the work. Usually the work is relegated to people who hold marginalized identities. And I think that for many of us who hold marginalized identities, and I won't speak for my fellow panelists, is I'm passionate about my work because it's part of my lived experience, that's for sure. And it's not just my work to do, right? So I think that more and more people with dominant identities, more white folks, more cisgender men, need to engage in equity and justice and inclusion work. It shouldn't just be people with marginalized identities. Couple more things. I'm feeling like Ava should have gone second because I'm like the downer of it. You have some like really good advice. I think that the other thing that we often see in terms of what compels organizations to do equity work or to start thinking more about environmental justice, et cetera, is this, I call it fear of a brown planet. Fear of a brown planet, fear of this? 2042, it's all over, Sandra. We're coming for you. This sort of looming threat of impending doom that's lighting a fire under conservation nonprofits everywhere to do this work generally is, we need to stay more relevant because demographics are changing. And I think until and unless we get back to a values-based reason for doing this work, it's not going to be sustainable. Sure, that's the reason that might sell to a particular board member or a donor, and know that particular reason shouldn't be the ultimate reason to engage in this work. And I think I've pretty much covered all the challenges / opportunities. Did I miss anything, Ava? This is where we work way better as a team. Did what I say make you think of more things you wanted to say? No. Ooh, you've done it. Yeah, thank you all. I really appreciate you all sitting here and listening to us rattle on about equity and inclusion as practitioners. And yeah, hope you got something out of this. And we're open for questions in just a little bit. Want to come up, Elijah? Great.